Welcome to Geneva Community High School. My name is Tom Rogers. I'm the principal here at the high school, and we're thrilled to see all of you out on this lovely evening. And I'm sure that you're questioning why didn't this get canceled. It's because no matter when we schedule 8th grade parent night, the weather is awful. So we've been doing this for a long, long time, and it's always snowing or always below zero, so we've learned we just have to go forward with it. To kick off the evening in this particular session, I'd like to introduce Sue Kaliev, who is the Department Chair of Social Studies and World Language. She's going to spend the first half of this portion of your evening talking to you about those two departments. Sue?
Good evening, and as Mr. Rogers said, thank you for your courage coming out on a night like tonight. Can you hear me, or would it be better if I use a microphone? You can hear me? Yes, can you hear me in the back? Okay, good. I'm going to talk about two departments. I chair both the Social Studies and the World Language Department. I'm a Social Studies instructor, but I've been a student of language, and I've been chairing these two departments for a long time. So I'm going to start with Social Studies and talk about the choice that your son or daughter is going to be making about a course for next year. And then secondly, we'll talk about language, which is a little bit easier, especially because a lot of our students have actually started with their study of language already. So we have a requirement here at Geneva High School of 2.5 years of social studies. So by the time your son or daughter graduates in 4 years, they need to have a minimum of 2.5 years. And what that should look like is 1 year of world history. That is what they will take during their first year. So that's what they're taking next year. And it's going to be one of two courses, and that's what I'm going to try to talk you through mostly tonight to give you an idea of the decision they need to make next year. I'll talk a little bit about social studies after that, but what I'm mostly going to talk about is going to be their first year here. So they'll take 1 year of world history. They will also take 1 year of American history. We are making a shift here at the high school. That has always been something that students have done in the 11th grade. We are making a shift to that being done in the 10th grade. We think it gives us a much stronger program for students to have 2 years of social studies in their first 2 years of high school. So that will be something that your sons and daughters will be dealing with, is American history in the 10th grade rather than 11th grade. And then they also take a course in U.S. government. This is a 1 semester course, and they can do that either as a junior or as a senior. So that's 2.5 years. Now, with that said, we do recommend that they take more than that. The state of Illinois recommends 3 years. And if they are looking at a more competitive university, they really want to have 4 years of social studies. So 2.5 would be the absolute minimum. The vast majority of our students do take at least 3 years. They take electives as juniors or seniors, and I'll show you a couple of those in a little bit. So this is what it looks like in a matrix. And shows the choices that they have each year. So in 9th grade, we're going to take modern world history or honors modern world history. Those are the 2 choices. For American history, there's 3 different ways they can meet that requirement. They can take American in the 20th century, which is what most students take. They can take American Studies, which is a program that we offer that combines the social studies requirement and the English requirement, and those are put together in the same class. We've been doing this for probably about 15 years, and it's a very different alternative for students to meet this requirement, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. Or they can take Advanced Placement, American History, so that would be the first AP course that they would be able to take in social studies. Government, they either take U.S. government for a semester, or again, they can stick with an AP course and they can take AP American government. This is what they're going to decide for next year, though. So it's pretty simple. that they're going to take regular Modern World or Modern World Honors. That recommendation comes from their current teacher at the middle school. And those recommendations, I think, are going to be sent, they're usually sent out this week. And so that comes from what they have done this year in their social studies course. It also takes into account some of their standardized scores, particularly in terms of reading, because of the reading requirement for the honors class is fairly robust. And the reading level on the textbook is pretty difficult, and so we want to make sure that students are capable of reading at that level. So those recommendations will be made. Those are not carved in stone, though. And we understand that there are probably a lot of other factors that you can offer to us that will maybe help us make a better placement. So if you do not agree with the placement, you can actually call me and we can talk about that and come up with a placement that we think would be better. Whether they take regular Modern World or Honors Modern World, this is pretty much what the nature of the course is going to be. It's their introduction to social studies at the high school level. It is pretty much a chronological romp through history. It is not thematic. It's taught chronologically. We start with the world since 1500. Sometimes we need to do some backfill, but mostly that is our focus, and we try to get up to the 21st century by the end of the year. So that's the content that we're looking at. It is very strong in the skill set of reading, writing, speaking, and research. And all of those things are kind of blended together for, we hope, what will be a challenging but pleasant experience for their introduction to social studies. One of the reasons that we are moving our American history from the 11th grade to the 10th grade is so that we can have a really good 2-year sequence of those skills, so that students, by the time they get to the end of their sophomore year, they have a really good, firm grasp of especially those 4 skills. The other thing we feel pretty strongly about in social studies is civic education, and we want students to be good citizens. And so we want them to have a familiarity with current issues. How does one look at a current issue? What are some of the things that we need to consider? We want them to get used to looking at multiple perspectives before they make a decision about something. And we want them to find their voice. Because that is what active citizens do, is they use their voice. And so that is a part, whether they're in the honors class or they are in our standard world history class. If your son or daughter might be interested in an honors placement, these are some of the things that you probably want to consider. They should have a really strong grade in both social studies and language arts in the 8th grade. So that would be kind of the beginning place. Their reading scores need to be at the 90th percentile, and as I mentioned before, that really has to do with the reading level of the text that we use in that course. If students struggle with reading that is a lower level, they're really going to have a tough time with reading. We want them to be able to work independently, also be able to multitask. That is something that is pretty common in an honors class. Above average writing ability and some strong organizational skills are going to serve them pretty well in that course as well. Just briefly, the elective, and again, this is getting a little bit further down the road, but just so you are aware of it, once they get to junior or senior level, there are other semester electives that they can take. There is one full year elective that students can take that it's actually going to be a new course for us next year. We're starting an AP World History course, and they can take that as junior or senior. And then we do have a lot of semester electives that students can choose from as well. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we strongly recommend that students pick up at least one more semester of social studies, since that is what the state of Illinois recommends. We do have an extracurricular program as well in social studies, and we hope that your sons or daughters will be interested in that. We have a Model United Nations program that has students look at the world from the perspective of a different country and try to grapple with some of the issues that the UN is currently dealing with. We have foreign travel, and we also have Capital Forum, which is where students can interact with other students from Illinois. They go down to Springfield for a couple days and talk mostly about national issues. So that would be another way that they can get involved. Okay, I'm going to put on a different hat now. I'm going to move into world language. And again, a lot of our students start their study of a language in 8th grade at the middle school. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is going to pertain to those students. If your son or daughter has not started a language yet, then they are welcome to begin in any of our 3 languages. We have Spanish and French and German. If you are shopping around for a language, if you want, on the last slide is my phone number and my email. If you are not really sure what language your son or daughter should take, and they have no idea, if you want to contact me, I've got some written material that will kind of offer some suggestions about things to consider when you're choosing a language. We do not have a world language requirement for graduation. However, we do recommend that students study a language for a minimum of 2 years. There are some implications for college with that I'll get into in a couple minutes, but I think bigger is what the quote suggests here, and it is as we become an increasingly global community, our students are competing with students from all over the world. And studying another language is a very, very common thing in other countries. And I think to have the same kind of advantage in that global marketplace, it would behoove our students to be familiar with the second language. It might not even be a language that they are going to use. There's something about the study of a language, though. When you study one language, studying another language becomes easier. And so there's a whole skill set that goes along with that students also develop. We have Spanish, French, and German. We offer levels 1 through 5. 5 is mostly our AP level. We also have an honors level in 2, 3, and 4. In Spanish, because we have so many students that take that language, we have a level 5, which is an advanced placement course. We also have a level 5, which is not an advanced placement course. It is for students who are they really like the language, they like the culture, and they really just want to take another year of it. The way that we place students is pretty direct. If students these are for students who are currently enrolled in a language. If they're getting an A or a B in French, Spanish, or German 1, we're going to recommend that they move to the second level of the language because they've mastered the basics. They're going to be bored if they take level 1 all over again. I'm going to go to the bottom one next. If students get a D or an F in that language, we're going to recommend that they retake it because they do not have enough mastery of the basics of the language in order to be successful. They could switch languages if they want to at that point as well. Students with the C, it depends on what kind of C that is. And again, this recommendation is going to come from the teachers at the middle school. So they are really going to look very strongly at assessments and grammar and see how the student is doing that. The quantum leap from the first year to the second year of a language is in the area of grammar. If they've struggled with it in the first level, they're going to struggle with that in the second level, and so we might suggest that they repeat the first level of language. If they are interested in an honors placement, the first point here is the most important thing about honors placement. These are students who really, really like to speak the language and are not intimidated. by speaking the language. So if during their first year they really enjoyed it and they're not shy about that, that is something that they really like to do. These are the kids who really belong in the honors level. So that maybe is the one thing that's different in language than might be with all of the other things that I talked about, even for social studies. So again, we want students who have done extremely well in the first level. We want students who can work independently. We want students who can self-assess. But being able to really embrace that speaking of the language, that is the thing that we find is really critical for kids that want to be in the honors class. This will be odd that I'm talking about college because you don't even have them in high school yet. But there are some things that you need to think about in terms of language when it comes to college. There are some universities that will have an entrance requirement, and they will say you need to have 2 years of a language. I'll show you some more information on that in a minute. There's also a placement that's different from the entrance requirement. Your son or daughter might have taken 4 years of a language in high school. That does not mean that they are going to be placed in that level once they get to college. Virtually all universities will administer a placement test to figure out what the appropriate placement is. So one student who has 4 years might be placed in a 102 class. Another student might be placed in a 202 class. So it depends strictly on how they do on that placement test. Some universities do not necessarily have an entrance requirement, they have an exit requirement. And if you have a certain number of years when you've entered, that can impact what the exit requirement is, so that is something to think about as well. These are some of the entrance requirements for some of the colleges and universities that our students go to. If you would look at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, this is what more universities are doing now, and you can go to their websites. And this also is a moving target, so this will probably change by the time your sons and daughters are graduating. But what a lot of universities are doing now is they will tell you what they require or what they want, but then they will also show you a separate column that says, but this is what our current freshman class has. That's what you need to look at, because those are the students that, I mean, they have to compete against each other in order to get X number of spots that are open at the university. So a lot of universities are going to that. If they say that they want 2 years for entrance, if your son or daughter took the first level in 8th grade and the second level in 9th grade, that is 2 years. They do not get high school credit for the 8th grade year, but that, according to the university, they have 2 years that they have studied the language. It has to be the same language. It cannot be 2 separate languages. We also have extracurricular activities for all of our languages. So we have a French, Spanish, German club, we have an international club, and we do a host of competitions and contests in foreign travel, and so we hope that they will become involved in those things as well. If you have questions, please, you can email me, or that's my phone number. Feel free to call me, and I can answer any questions that you may have. And I'm going to turn this over to Tom Rogers now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. To get my portion of this part of your rotation started, I'm just going to real quickly introduce some of my colleagues. You won't be hearing from them this evening, but it's always nice to put a face with a name. You will have other opportunities to get to know them. First of all, throughout some of our other transition activities that will be upcoming, but also throughout the next 4 years. First, our Associate Principal, Mr. Doug Drexler. We didn't have the lights turned on over on that side of the stage, so lurking in the dark over here on the side of the stage is Doug Drexler. Our Athletic Director, Jim Kafer. One of our Deans, Mr. Mike Kelly. And Scott McPeak, our Assistant Principal and also the architect of this evening's program. Thanks, folks. And now they're off to go direct traffic as we approach the end of this first session. Again, thank you all very much for coming. I really enjoy this program in particular because I've been accused of bleeding blue by my colleagues, And I think what they mean by that is I tend to show a lot of enthusiasm. I'm very proud of what we have to offer here at Geneva High School. And for these few minutes, unlike the department chairs who are going to be sharing, I like to say you're going to be on information overload by the end of the evening because of all the curriculum information you're going to get from the department chairs. My role tonight is to just try to give you some nuts and bolts, try to assure you that this is going to be a great opportunity for your son or daughter over the next 4 years. And so it gives me an opportunity to brag a little bit about what our current students have done and what our graduates have done. And so actually, before I get started with that, how many of you are sending a child to Geneva High School for the first time? Aha, okay. That is typical of the trend here at 8th grade parenting. So I first of all want to assure you, this is going to be a great experience for your son or daughter. Based on our past experience, I believe that it's going to be the best 4 years of your son or daughter's life. And I truly mean that. They're going to have a great time in the classroom, they're going to learn a lot, and there are going to be just gobs and gobs of opportunities outside of the classroom for them to get involved and to have fun. And they are going to be part of a larger school than what they're accustomed to, a little bit. We are a school of just under 2,000 students, which means that each of our graduating classes is somewhere in that 500 student range, just a little bit under. Each graduating class in recent history has a graduation rate of approximately 99%, give or take a tenth of a percentage point or so. And 90% of each graduating class has pursued a college degree. And typically, the statistics indicate that 70% of that graduating class goes off to a 4-year college or university, and another 20% takes advantage of the community college system that is a very strong system in our area. Wabansie Community College, College of DuPage, Elgin Community College, they offer wonderful programs. And so 90% of our graduates are taking advantage of those community college programs or a college or university. And recent statistics also indicate that we are sending students to more than 120 different colleges or universities across the country, as well as internationally. I know we've sent some students abroad for college in recent years as well. The average ACT score for the class of 2014 was 24.2, and the 5-year average for the last 5 graduating classes was 24.2. The numbers have gone up or down, but the average has been 24.2 over the last 5 years. We're very proud of that number. That number puts us as the top public high school in the area. Parochial schools will outscore us, but the public schools in the area, we rank at the top based on that average ACT score. So we're very proud of that. The structure of this evening's program is such that you are going to move throughout the building and hear from the different department chairs. Number one, we think it's a good idea to get you up and moving rather than have you in the auditorium listening to all this information for the next 2 hours. Secondly, we're very proud of the facilities that we have here at Geneva Community High School. We're very proud of this auditorium. The seats were recently redone. All of our band concerts, choir concerts, orchestra concerts, drama productions, they all take place right here in this auditorium. We're very fortunate to have it. As you make your way throughout the building tonight, you'll get an opportunity to just get a little taste of what our facilities are like, and I think you will find them, A, to be very clean, and B, to be very modern and up to date. We're very fortunate to have added on to this building back in 2001, and the original structure, which was built in 1958, was renovated at the same time, and we're very proud of the job that the architects did. To us, it feels like a very seamless transition between that new and old part of the building. So we hope you enjoy getting to see a little bit of the building tonight, and there will be other opportunities in the future as well as your son or daughter makes their way through high school. A lot of you raised your hand as first-time high school students. This evening really kicks off the transition process for you and your son or daughter. Tomorrow, it was supposed to be today, but the weather didn't cooperate. Tomorrow, all of the counselors are headed over to the middle schools, and they will be meeting with your son or daughter and handing them a program of study, giving them the sheets that they need to register for their courses, and thus they will begin the transition process to high school as well. In addition to this evening, and in addition tomorrow for your students, we will invite the 8th graders to come here in May, where they will get to tour the building. They will be here in the auditorium, hearing some information from me as well as some of my colleagues. We will also extend a very warm invitation to your son or daughter to come early in August. They will be the first class to come register and get their textbooks and get their locker assignment. And they will have a full week and a half prior to school starting to get accustomed to the building. There was a common misconception years ago that we wanted the freshmen to be scared and intimidated the first day that they walked in. That's old school, and we don't subscribe to that theory anymore. We want them to walk through the door with their heads held high, confident, ready to go, knowing where they need to get to. And this is a big building. We hear all the time that kids get lost, and we know that's going to happen, even after they spend the first week and a half before school starts coming back over and over again and walking their schedule and finding their locker. But we're going to minimize that fear that they have by giving them that opportunity. So we've got a lot of transition activities planned, and it won't end there. On the second day of school, the first Thursday morning, we have a modified schedule so that teachers can collaborate. It's called PLCs, Professional Learning Communities, but we also have PLCs for students, Personal Learning Choices. And just about every Thursday morning, we invite different classes or different groups of students to come in and take advantage of opportunities to either learn more, to get interventions, to get help in certain classes, or we use this auditorium to meet with an entire class at one time. And on that first Thursday of the school year, your son or daughter will be that group that's here in the auditorium. It will be part of the freshman orientation process that we will take advantage of on that first Thursday to continue to get them acclimated and transitioned to this high school experience. It will continue about a week or so later when we will introduce them to all of the extracurricular offerings that they have available. We will have an extracurricular fair in the gymnasium. All of the extracurricular activities have tables set up. We have students and sponsors there. So we're going to spend a great deal of time making sure that they get off to a great start here, to get their high school career off to a great start. So we have a lot of transition activities planned between now and the first couple of weeks of the school year. Running out of time, so I want to finish tonight by using this word, balance. I hope that you will keep that word in mind as you go through the various rotations tonight. As I said earlier, you're going to hear a lot of information about curriculum. You're going to hear a lot about honors courses. I heard Sue talk about honors and AP. You're going to hear about that in all the other presentations as well. You're also going to hear about the regular curriculum that we offer. You're going to have choices. You and your son and daughter together are going to have to make up your mind and have to decide what's the right balance. And it's not just deciding what the balance is academically, but it's also finding the right balance academically along with all of the other opportunities that are going to be made available to them as high school students. Early in the school year, in October, homecoming week is going to be upon them. There's going to be a lot to do. Hopefully they're going to be enthused about going to build a float, going to the pep rally, going to the Powder Puff football game, going to the parade, going to the football game on Friday night, buying a ticket and going to the dance on Saturday night. It's an overwhelming but very fun week, but if you're not careful, it can become a week that can sidetrack a successful student. So again, that balance of deciding how many honors courses should my son or daughter take, or should they take any at all? The right answer really can't be provided by us. We can only make recommendations, and the 8th grade teachers are going to help us with those recommendations. But the answer lies with you and your son or daughter. For a very, very small percentage of our students, all honors courses is possible. But it's a very, very small percentage of students who can handle that. Some, 1 or 2, is a better choice. And for some, no honors classes is a terrific choice. Regardless of what you choose, Geneva Community High School is going to challenge your son or daughter. The key is just finding where your son or daughter fits into that spectrum. Our curriculum put the honors language aside for a moment. Our curriculum, with no honors words in front of it, is a very challenging curriculum, and it will provide them with a very solid foundation and will get them into many colleges and universities if that's your goal. I know of many, many students who have taken English 1, Modern World, Algebra, Earth Science or Biology as freshmen, and then add a couple other things in there, and continue that track all the way through high school, and they go off and do great things in a post-secondary institution. So please keep that word balance in mind as you're trying to choose these things. You've got time to make up your mind, but one of the reasons we didn't cancel tonight's presentation is because we do know that now's the time to start making up your mind, and we do have a finite amount of time to do that because we have to start building our master schedule and getting your son or daughter ready for next year. So it is now time to rotate to the next location. You're going to go to your left, out this door, just across the hall, follow the sign to C141, which is the choir room. We are thrilled to have your son or daughter join us next year. Thanks a lot for coming, and we'll see you again in the summer.
Well, good evening and welcome to the appearance of the class of 2019. Does that seem possible? I remember when 2001 was a space odyssey. Now it's, ancient history. I'm Mary Jane Johnson. I'm the department chair for counseling and advising. And tonight with me is Mrs. Nancy Rizzo. She's the department chair for English. So I'll present first and then she'll follow up after that. So good to see you all tonight, brave souls. If I could give you extra credit, I would. Typically, we're doing this a little backwards. Typically, we see your students first, and then we have you come in the evening and go over what we talked to your students about. So we're going to do that in the opposite order this year, and we're hoping to see your students tomorrow. Illinois weather always keeps us guessing, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be there tomorrow. So just want to bring a few things to your attention. When your students do come home tomorrow, they should have one of these, program of study, and one of these, the green sheet, course request sheet. Okay, this program of study won't ever make the bestseller list, but I can tell you it has all the information you will ever need to know about any course here at Geneva High School, including who's eligible to take that course, what is the course description, are there any prerequisites for the course? So it really gives you all the information along with graduation requirements, what colleges are recommending for coursework. So it's very important piece of information. Well, we all know how middle school kids are. Should you not see this book, and it falls into space somewhere, on the bus, in the snow, wherever, this is posted online on our GHS website. So that's always a good resource as well. Alrighty. And now for English.
I don't know how it jumped from that to that. Let's see what happened.
On January 23rd, coming up quickly, on your home access, you will be able to see the recommendations. The recommendations that the middle school teachers have made for your students. Please keep in mind that the teachers give a lot of time and thought to making these recommendations, and they want to see your children succeed here at the high school. They are also very familiar with what our curriculum is like. So we find that students following the recommendations typically do very well. That is not to say that, once in a great while, I think in my 12 years, maybe I can count on one hand, times when maybe a student should have been recommended for a higher level and wasn't. If you have questions about the recommendations, please contact the middle school teacher making the recommendation, because they're the ones that know your student. If you have questions about the high school curriculum in any of the curricular areas, please contact us and we'll put you in touch with that department chair. They will be able to answer any questions about a particular course. Okay? Just a quick review here, and this is all, again, in the white program of study. These are graduation requirements. 20.5 credits needed to graduate. Fairly straightforward, 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of science, 2.5 years of social studies, PE every semester except one when they take health, personal finance, formerly known as consumer, and then electives. However, and these are on page 3 and 4 of the program of study, colleges are recommending something a little bit different. And we are finding as counselors, it's been very difficult to keep up with all of the changes, nearly impossible. So colleges seem to be changing what they are requiring from year to year. So we recommend, this is based on Illinois state colleges, we recommend that you follow the 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of social studies, 2 years of the same foreign language, and electives in fine arts. Now, if your student, or you already know a few of the schools where your student wants to apply, wants to attend, it's a little bit early, but sometimes we do have students come in that know they want to go to a particular school, then I would say, go connect with that school, contact them, go on the website, and they will outline what is needed for admission to that school. Okay, this is a sample schedule for freshmen. Pretty straightforward, and 5 of your students, 5 of their classes have already essentially been chosen for them. English, now they could be an English 1 or English 1 honors, and Mrs. Rizzo will explain that in more detail. Modern World or Modern World honors. Science, there are some options in science. It could be general science, it could be biology, it could be biology honors, or it could be earth science. Math, same thing, some options in math. Your student may be recommended for something like Algebra 1, Part A, meaning that a second part would be taken as a sophomore. So 2 years to complete an algebra class, but it gives them a fabulous foundation. So if your student is not really strong in math, this may be a recommendation and a very good one. Team sports, and then 2 electives. So essentially they have the 5 classes and 2 spots for electives. Now, if your student is already in a language, wants to continue that language, wants to start a language, that would be a 6th course, and it's a year-long course. If your student is in language and music, which is often the case, then music would be the 7th course, and it's a year-long course. So a student that has those desires would already have their schedule complete. So the 5 cores and the 2 electives, language and music. They may have one of those. So let's say your student is in French, wants to go on to French 2, then that takes 1 full year slot, so that would be their 6th course. Then they would still have room for an elective, 2 one-semester courses or a year-long course, or study halls. So lots of options. Alrighty. Okay, just kind of looking ahead a little bit. Your student will eventually choose their courses online. But quickly, what we really want you to know is that we will be meeting with your students. Once they come in to GHS, get settled, we will be meeting with them, and then we're going to start those discussions of what happens next. First of all, we want to make sure that they have a good transition to Geneva High School, that they are settled, that they're feeling comfortable. Then we're going to talk about, okay, what do you want to do next year? And maybe the year after that and the year after that. So our goal is to kind of travel this journey with all of you over the next 4 years and your student. We're very grateful that we can follow our students. We do not change every year, so we will have your students for 4 years. Just a few points here of information. Levels in courses can be changed within the first 3 weeks of the semester, and dropping to a study hall is allowed during the first 6 weeks of a semester. So, again, on the 23rd, I suggest that you look at home access, that you carefully consider those recommendations, and remember that balance is the name of the game. If you have a student that is involved in athletics, in clubs, in volunteer work, outside organizations, what can they handle? You know your student best. It's very possible that your student is going to be recommended for 3 honors classes, maybe 4, maybe even 5. So you have to make some decisions. I think it is very, very difficult for a freshman to handle 5 honors classes if they are doing anything outside of school. And our goal is to have them be happy, healthy students, and we want them to experience what is a club like. What is, maybe they like athletics, maybe it's not athletics, maybe they like art. We have well over 100 clubs that they can partake in, and that is really part of their experience as well, a very important part. So we want them to take advantage of that. Also, we are a school, so first and foremost, we are talking academics. We want to stretch your students. We want them to, to build their confidence, to try, to do something a little bit higher and higher and higher, because we are trying to prepare them for their post-secondary life. We want to stretch them. We don't want to break them. And unfortunately, we have had a number of hospitalizations because of the stress that students are feeling. So we really want to make sure that there is balance in their lives. And we're here to not only take care of academics, but their social, emotional well-being as well. Okay, PLCs. I see a few people in the audience I know that have had students here before. How many of you, can you raise your hands, have had? Okay, well, not too many then. PLCs are professional learning communities, and they are held on Thursday morning. We are one of the few schools in our area that also offer personal learning choices for our students. Teachers collaborate during this time. However, students have the opportunity to come in and take advantage of these activities here: a study hall, a subject area tutoring. We have labs available for math, for science, for English. They can do a test makeup, a PE makeup, or attend a club meeting. And there will be various times throughout the year when they will come in for a grade-specific meeting. In other words, we need to talk to all seniors. So you will be given notification that that is a mandatory meeting for your students. Otherwise, it is optional. However, we strongly suggest that your students take advantage of this. And like I said, we're one of the few schools that offer these opportunities. Additional information, just quickly, Naviance is a career and college search tool. The freshmen won't have much to do with it. However, as they become sophomores, they start investigating, okay, careers and colleges, and what am I interested in? There are many surveys attached to Naviance, personality surveys, career search surveys. So as juniors and seniors, we push them. As seniors, this is the way they apply to college. So they will become very familiar with Naviance by the time they are seniors. And you as parents have the opportunity to go on as well. NCAA, I don't know if we have aspiring all-stars out there, but a lot of students do have that dream of playing collegiate sports. If you have a student that has that dream, strongly recommend that you go on to the NCAA website, because NCAA has their own criteria. If you want to play Division I or Division II, you must follow their guidelines, and I can tell you just kind of in general that their guidelines are going to say they want core classes. So very important that you start looking at that as a freshman, because if you find out that you have a student all of a sudden is, second semester junior and they're an outstanding runner or, have become a phenomenal volleyball player, they're not going to have enough time to get all of that coursework in, these specific coursework that they're looking for. So please keep that in mind. Okay, we also have a career coordinator. Fortunate to have someone in our office who can actually sit down along with the counselor, because we certainly discuss careers as we work with your students. But she can sit down, give them some inventories, talk to them about specific careers, likes, dislikes, and then as they become an upperclassman, they can do job shadows, and as seniors, they can actually do career internships. Fabulous, fabulous opportunity. Better to know what you like and dislike before you invest thousands of dollars in that particular career. So we're very fortunate to have a career coordinator. As I said before, we're concerned about your student holistically. We want them to be happy. We want them to be healthy. We do want to stretch them. We don't want to break them. And, should your child be experiencing what you feel are, some stressors, some difficulties with the transition, maybe with their peers, please know that we do have sources here. We have social workers, we have 7 counselors, and we have 2 school psychologists that we work with to see how we can best serve your student. And at times, I don't want to be, spreading doom and gloom, but should it come to a point where your child would need some outside services, we will definitely facilitate that for you. Okay, this is a bell schedule. You'll have that in your program of study. I put it up here just to show you that there is an early bird PE, 6:30 to 7:35. If you have early bird, and if you are an early bird and are willing to drive your student to school, this is an option for freshmen. We don't have a lot of freshmen take it, but it is an option. It does, however, give them a long day because they do not get a release. As our upperclassmen, they can get a 10th period release when they do early bird. That is not the case for freshmen. What it does do is allow them to take a study hall or an additional class. So again, it's about options. So 6:30 to 7:35, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. They do not meet on Thursday because that again is the PLC day. Okay, again, just contact information. This will all be posted on our website tomorrow, this PowerPoint along with additional information. So again, I want to welcome you, but I just want to go over a few more things, if you don't mind, just make sure you didn't miss anything. Your selection sheets need to be turned in to the Geneva Middle School by January 28th. So you return them in back to the middle school. If you have any questions, counselors there are familiar with this process, January 28th. And then, let's say you turn them in and you're kind of stewing about something and you go home and you think, oh, I just don't think that's the right choice for my student, or your student wants to change. Just give us a call, we'll make that change. But after March the 6th, that's the deadline, because we do have to start staffing for next year. And our staffing is dependent on what your requests are. So March 6th is kind of the, drop dead date on that. Your students will also be coming to Geneva High School, most likely in April. They'll come as a whole class. Geneva South will come at one time, Geneva North at another time, and they will be given a tour of the school, get a feel about what is offered here, mostly in terms of like clubs, organizations, take a look at, how the school is laid out. It's always a day that they have a lot of fun with. I think that is about it. Other than to say, we do have various ways of communicating with you as parents. You probably already know Geneva 304 Connects had a lot of information on it the last few days due to the weather. That is a great source. The GHS website, and also Viking Vessel, which is our newsletter, electronic newsletter published once a month. So I think if you kind of tune into those three areas, you will actually be up to date on what is going on at Geneva High School. And welcome. We're happy to have you.
Transition here.
Well, good evening. I'm Nancy Rizzo. I'm the English Department Chair. I'm going to speak to you from two different perspectives. My first perspective, I'm going to speak to you as a Geneva parent because I live in Geneva and I had two kids that came through the system. And from that perspective, they're a little bit older now, 24 and 26. Having the experience of having them gone through college, I can remember not that long ago being in your seats and thinking, first of all, how young I was to have high schoolers. But then after that thought, I couldn't believe that it was actually happening, that my kids were coming. And there was some fear and trepidation. Two things I want to give you my reflections, thinking if I had known now, what I know now. The first thing is the fallacy that everyone has to take an honors class. Being the English department chair, I know I put a little self-induced pressure that my kids should be honors kids. And they weren't. They were just regular kids at regular track. And I'm going to give you my perspective of them going through typical Geneva classes without any honors. They were exceptionally prepared for college and did great. My son did Wabanji the first year, then moved on to Bradley. Both of them double majored. My daughter went to Taylor. They graduated in 4 years. They're not living in the basement. They got jobs. So it was success as far as I was concerned. So if you're feeling the pressure that you have to keep up with the Joneses, because I didn't feel that growing up, but I know societally and especially in a community like ours, there's this feeling that we all have to be honors, and if we're not, there's something not quite right, and everyone else is. We're trying to keep that level. I would like to remove that because I know I experienced it myself. The second thing is there's a fear and a pressure that you'll never be able to get into college if you have one mistake. If you happen to get a B or a C, my goodness, the mind starts going and you start thinking, okay, they've gotten a C, we're doomed. We're never going to get into college. And then pretty soon they're never going to get a job. By the end of the mind process, they're living in a cardboard box down in Skid Row. We just have these pressures that everything's going to fall apart. Again, from my perspective, that really doesn't happen. Not saying that you have to work hard and keep things together and do your best, push yourself to get into college, but there's a little bit of this feeling that colleges are incredibly difficult to get into these days. I don't really see it much different than when I was getting into college. So if I can release that, and the pressure that our kids are feeling is off the charts. We need to release them from that. A lot of times it's our pressure that we're putting on them, and we kind of forget they're kids. We need to let them be kids. All right, that's my parent spiel. As far as from an English perspective, the English requirements are fairly clear-cut. There are 4 years of English. You have freshman, sophomore, and junior English. Senior year is the only year that's just a tad different. You have 1 semester of English 4, and then there's an elective, which allows them to kind of play around with some different options that they might be interested. So it's a nice time to explore. The electives that are available the freshman year are fairly limited. As Mrs. Johnson said, their schedule is pretty packed with the requirements just to get through the requirements to graduate. So there's a limited option. They come more their upper class years. But freshman year in English class, you take composition for print and web media. I'm really excited about this class. It's been a class that's kind of floundered the last few years because media has been changing so much. Newspapers kind of don't exist anymore. They're just dying. Magazines are dying. The print ones, they're just going along the wayside in forms of electronic media now. So it's been really exciting. We have a teacher who's jumped on board and incredibly enthusiastic. It's run as a club now, and some very enthusiastic kids who are really kind of bringing this off the ground. It's called The Voyager. It's an online magazine / newspaper, and kids are starting to write. So we're getting this class coming up in a new, kind of reinventing itself to meet today's modern world. Other electives that are available, but they are not at English credit, but a general elective credit. There's Drama Workshop 1 and 2, and then we have 4 different classes that would be available in our television studio line. And if you have not seen any of our television productions, they are outstanding. I just think what they can do is amazing. It's a very professional feel. It's very student-run, student-driven. Our teacher, I think, does an outstanding job. So if your son or daughter is interested in that, really interesting, popular courses that they are available to start that sequence as early as their freshman year. There are other electives that you'll be looking at a little bit further down the line, and those are all in your course study, and they'll be looking at them as they get a little bit older. So your big option right now is English 1 versus English 1 honors. And as I said, many of you will have your son or daughter recommended for honors. Outstanding, excellent, take that. It'll push you and help them grow and stretch, an awesome experience. But if they're not recommended, have no fear. It is a rigorous program. The typical student at Geneva will excel, and I'm going to give you some information to back that up in a second. So you've got to decide which one you're going to do, English 1 or English 1 honors. As Mrs. Johnson said, we really ask you to strongly consider and think of following what your 8th grade teacher does recommend. They put a lot of thought. They know from their perspective, seeing them in the classroom, where they will succeed and where their skill set lies. We're looking for students in the 85th percentile of reading or in language, as according to the test du jour that Springfield gives us. So we are looking at those tests, and then in your 8th grade class, if they're an accelerated, we'd like to see a B+ or higher, or if they're a regular language arts, we'd like to see an A. Kind of to show the discrepancy between the 2 different classes as far as reading, English 1, there will be 5 to 6 novels. Most of it's novels based. There are some short stories and plays and nonfiction, but it really is more novel driven. So there will be 2 or 3 novels a semester. It'll be quicker with the English 1. They'll read a little bit more, 6 to 8, so it'll be 3 to 4 novels a semester. May have a little bit of in-class time, English 1, not really too much, but if you finish something, that might give you the second half of the period to get a jump on your reading. English 1 honors, you probably won't see that. And it's usually in addition to other assignments. So there might be some typical homework assignments given. On top of that will be the reading. You can average maybe 100 pages a week on top of other assignments. So you're going to have a rigorous load there. There is summer reading that is required. It's the Count of Monte Cristo going into freshman year. It kind of looks like a telephone book, really, really big. So if they start to break down and weep when they see this, knowing they have to read it, it might be a sign that they might not be interested. It's an outstanding book. It's a big book, but it's rich. Students really love it. My son, again, was non-honors. He just read it and because he read it outside reading, said this should be required for everybody. It's such a good book. So it's outstanding, but it's rigorous. Writing. English 1, typical writing is in an English class, but we're going to walk them through some of the planning and processing a little bit more. We'll probably work with more graphic organizers. We'll probably help them with the structure, things like that. But when you get to English 1 honors, we're going to assume that at this point they have the basics down. They know thesis, they know topic sentences, they know what we're looking for as far as examples. What we're going to be pushing here is a higher level of analysis and a higher level of sophistication. And I'll be honest, this is a struggle for some students because they'll look and think, okay, I've got my essay, topic sentence, check. 3 examples, check. And they get a weaker grade than they're used to. The problem is the examples are not thoroughly developed or thoroughly analyzed, or the writing might be a little simplistic, the same sentence structure, we're asking for more sophistication. Those are difficult concepts to explain. It's not really concrete. They just check off, topic sentence, check. Well, you can have a bland topic sentence or a sophisticated topic sentence. So it's looking for a higher level. You may have time in class where we actually work through, and an example, in my English 3 class, we were doing a Macbeth essay, and they had to have a couple quotes per paragraph to back up their claims. We spent a day in class with them working around in the textbook. I circulated around the room, helping them find quotes. we would expect an honor student to be able to do that on their own. Homework, probably about 3 times, it depends with each teacher, but about 3 times a week. English 1 honors, I would say pretty typically, most nights, a lot of times it is that reading outside on your own. I know for myself, when I teach AP, I tell them to expect about an hour of homework a night. So you want to keep that in mind if many of you may have students who are recommended for all those honors. You want to pick and choose because it is a pretty heavy load. It gets a little intense. Some occasional multiple short-term assignments. English, there's often several different assignments, maybe a long one on top of it, so there's kind of multitasking with that. An example, this might be just one of the best ways to illustrate the types of differences of a regular class versus an honors class. In English 3, if we're reading Tennyson's poem, the questions might be, why is the speaker sad? What does he say that causes his sadness? What solution does he suggest? Because it's not real clear cut. It's more of a sophisticated language, and students just need some guided work with figuring out what's being said. With an honors kid, we're going to expect them to be able to read the poem and know what's being said, and we're going to hit them with some really higher level concepts to apply to them. So a question we would hit with Tennyson would be, discuss the existential causes of the divine despair experienced by the speaker and analyze the imagery used by the author to communicate his message. We would talk about existentialism, we would talk about divine despair, and we say, okay, apply it to this poem. And that's a much higher level. If the student doesn't even understand what the poem is saying, you cannot put these higher level questions, and we're going to expect them to kind of work that on their own. Many, many skills that we're going to look at that would help students with taking on those higher level concepts, and these are all in your packet, which are online, so you might want to look over those and kind of think, maybe go over it with your son or daughter to see if they think that this would be a fit for them. I'll speak, to me, one of the biggest things I see as a parent I saw was a struggle for my own kids, and as an English department chair and as an English teacher, I think one of the biggest struggles you may see at going from middle school to high school is that transition process. Middle school is very nurturing and supportive. And I want you to remember, we are also going to prepare them for the next level. And the next level is either going to be college or work. And the demands get higher and higher. And you have to raise that bar. And raising that bar can be uncomfortable at times. We're all about stretching and growing and a healthy challenge. There's a healthy struggle and an unhealthy struggle. We don't want an unhealthy struggle. I've got a couple quotes that I just believe more and more firmly every year. First one is, the surest path to high self-esteem is to be successful at something one perceived would be difficult. We have a culture where we tend that everybody gets a prize, everybody should get an A, and if you just try, that's good enough. If that's true, it really is kind of shallow and empty. You really don't, it's not a big deal. If everybody gets it and you don't even have to try or struggle with it, it's kind of a shallow feeling. Each time we steal a student's struggle, we steal the opportunity for them to build self-confidence. They must learn to do hard things to feel good about themselves. We are going to push them, and there will be discomfort. You may have a son or daughter who's never had an A. That is not uncommon. They may come into an English class, albeit honors or regular, and they may get a B or a C. And I've seen kids just fall apart with the C. Now that's something you've got to think about. If they just can't, just literally fall apart, that makes me a little concerned about the resilience. We don't want to bubble wrap them and protect them to never be hurt, because that's not going to happen. We want to teach them resilience. We want to teach them how to cope. We want to teach them strategies. We want to equip them to meet those difficult things. Here's why we do that, because we know where we're going. We raise that bar. Here's where our bar is. Our ACT scores, I will say no other word, we dominate King County, because we know we can push them. Why do we push them? Again, because we know where we can get. This is our composite ACT score. It's everybody in the school, from our special ed students up to our honor students. This is our moving to the composite of 24.2 versus the state average of 20.7. Our AP scores reflect the same type of rigor and the same type of excellence, and where we know we can push our students. AP tests are ranked on a scale of 5. 5s are incredibly difficult to get. The global average worldwide is 8%, we're at 14%. 4, again, really solid. Global average is 18%, we're at 42%. We just have incredibly high scores because we have wonderful students thanks to you and to raising them the way you did, because we have an incredible clientele to work with. So if you have any concerns or questions about where your honors placement would be or regular placement, please feel to give us a phone call. But again, thank you for coming out tonight. We're excited to have them. I'm thinking they're going to have a great experience. Before you go, if you look at the back of your packet, there is an evaluation form. If you wouldn't mind filling that out, we'd love to get your feedback and improve in any way we can. And there's a bin over on the table on your left. Thank you again for coming, and drive safely.
We want them to have those challenges, so they have to develop good study skills that will carry them through the rest of their high school and college career. The other kind of bad challenge is if we overplace. If we put a student in a course that's a little bit too high, what we can see happen is a little gap that may happen early in the year, they never get an opportunity to fill it in because they're always trying to keep up because it's a little bit ahead of them. So that little gap can turn into a big gap by the end of the year, just because they're struggling just to keep up. So if that gap's there, it can form and grow over the year. So we really are, one of our biggest goals is to lock them in the right spot of challenge so they see success, but they also experience some struggle along the way. And then last, and probably most importantly, is to meet the requirements, graduation, and more importantly, college entrance. Get them on that right track for what their ultimate goals are in life. With that, graduation requirement in Illinois currently is 3 years of mathematics. 1 year that's an Algebra 1 course. Our Algebra 1, which is our traditional starting point for most students, meets that part of the requirement. Our Algebra 1A and 1B, which is a 2-year Algebra 1 program, also meets that requirement. The other portion of the 3 years is that you just have to have a course that includes geometry content. Our students from Integrated, which is our pre-algebra entry-level course for students, and in our geometry courses will meet that requirement. As far as colleges, this slide I always have a little disclaimer. This changes on a daily basis. It's an ever-changing landscape, and it seems like the only change is that it keeps gradually creeping higher and higher and higher and higher with the expectations. So I put this slide in here, but I always want to display it. You know, if you have a particular college in mind, you want to look at that college, and that's a long ways down the road. But typically, the typical school is 3 years of mathematics. It's starting to inch towards 4 years. Selective and elite schools, so your U of I's and higher, they're typically looking at 3 years of mathematics, including Algebra 2. Some are starting to inch in and ask for a 4th year of mathematics as well. I've seen one school that has started to ask, I think it was Indiana, started to ask for pre-calculus as well. So they're looking Algebra 1 geometry, Algebra 2 pre-calc. And again, there's a lot of times until we get to those decisions, it's kind of good to keep the end in mind as we work through too. The recommendation process, there's really 3 people involved at first. The number one and probably most important is the 8th grade math teacher. This is the person who mathematically at this point in time probably knows your son or daughter the best. They've worked with them throughout the year. They have a really good idea of not just their study habits, but also their performance on the assessments along the way. They're the number one person, and they do a phenomenal job of making a recommendation. The second person is myself. Occasionally there'll be a borderline case where the 8th grade math teacher will give me a call, and they'll just say, you know, I have this tough case, and they'll give me a snapshot of the student, kind of behavior characteristics as far as their work ethic and homework completion, academic characteristics as far as what is their performance on the assessments, standardized test performance. And I'll kind of pair that with the student in my mind that I've had come through in past years and use that to kind of say, okay, well, this student started here and they performed in this way. And it'll help fill that on those tough situations where somebody's kind of borderline, really help that out. And then occasionally the counselor will become involved if there's other needs that are outside of the math classroom with the placement. The factors, number one factor is the academics. The number one factor is the math skills. A lot of really important things end up in a student's grade, but when we want to know where to start the students on that ladder towards knowing all the way through pre-calculus and beyond, we want to make sure that we have good solid skills underneath them so they can get outside if they can. So we really focus on standardized test performance. We focus on the assessments in the class. Their big tests that they see throughout first semester in 8th grade. That gives the teacher a really good idea of a good starting spot for the student. We have several options. They're dependent upon what course the student is in currently. If a student is currently in our 8th grade mathematics course, typically called pre-algebra, They would be heading towards our integrated course, which we'll talk about each of these in a little bit. Our Algebra 1 or our Algebra 1A course. A student that's in 8th grade Algebra 1 right now would typically be heading towards Geometry or Geometry Honors. If they got a little ahead of themselves, they might be recommended to retake Algebra 1. That's okay, because again, we want to build that solid foundation in algebra. And if they're currently enrolled in 8th grade in geometry here at the high school, then they'll be heading towards our Algebra 2. And occasionally we'll have a student beyond that may have to. Integrated 1, this is designed for a student where math has been a struggle throughout their middle school and elementary school. They're still working to develop the basic fluency with their facts, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. They're still developing some of the pre-algebra skills, and they're just not ready yet to dive into the abstract parts of algebra. The concept of a variable, they're not ready for that at this point. This course does a phenomenal job to build both the math skills as well as the study skills that will help the students to be successful as they head through the rest of our curriculum. Typically, if they start integrated 1 and 2 freshman year, they transition sophomore year into our Algebra 1A, which is the first year of a 2-year algebra program, and then junior year into Algebra 1B. Senior year, they typically enroll in Geometry CNA. This sequence does meet the graduation requirements after their junior year, but again, I encourage all the students to go ahead and keep taking math. There's nothing worse than sitting out a semester and then experiencing it again the next year in college after a year off. So we always encourage them to take that forward. Another entry point for students is Algebra 1A and B. This is a 2-year Algebra 1 program. This traditional Algebra 1 curriculum stretches it out over 2 years. It basically gives them double the time to master the content and skills in that course. It's a lot of time investment, but again, that's so we get that solid foundation so that the rest of their math experience sees success. It really builds solid skills for them. This is for a student that they've struggled. 8th grade math this year has been a struggle for them. They've seen probably more struggles than they've seen successes throughout the year. They've seen some successes, but the struggles has kind of overweighted at this point. Math is a struggle, but conceptually, they're ready for the abstract idea of a variable. They're ready to move into algebra. It's been a struggle along the way. Typically out of this, students freshman and sophomore year would be dedicated towards Algebra 1. Junior year would be dedicated towards geometry at any of our geometry levels. And then senior year would be dedicated towards Algebra 2. And they could either take Algebra 2 or Algebra 2 3 semesters. Anybody see a math problem with that last option? We really have 2 options with that. Option 1, a lot of our students will choose to take the first semester of that course during junior year along with the geometry course. It's been a great thing for a lot of students because they get a double dose of math, both geometry and algebra, right as they're taking their ACT. So they feel like they get a nice little boost for that college. They're looking for colleges. But some students, they don't want to double up in math. It's a struggle for them, and that would be too much. They might opt to take 2 semesters out of the 3, and then that summer before they transition away, take an Algebra 2 course at a local community college to kind of fill that gap in and transition to a 4-year university. The most traditional entry point, and where the majority of our students start, is where I started when I was in high school, is Algebra 1. Algebra 1 is a traditional starting point. It's a rigorous college prep course. It really develops their skills so they can see success through. This is designed for a student where this year they've been doing well in 8th grade math. They've seen more successes than they have struggles throughout the year. And math is, it's a strong subject for them. It doesn't have to be the strongest for them, but again, they've seen more successes than they've seen struggles throughout the year. The traditional pathway out of that is Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2 pre-calculus. This is probably what most of you experienced in high school, so I experienced when I was in high school. I have students that have gone through this pathway, emailed me back from Purdue and said, engineering's going great here. This is the pathway that allows the students to see a lot of success. Don't feel like they have to be in the honors path to see success and challenge. They'll be challenged in any of our courses, and our goal is to get them in that course so again they see that right level of challenge. For students that are in 8th grade, Algebra 1, they would head to Geometry or Geometry Honors. A lot of the distinctions between those two is their passion and interest in mathematics. If the student is passionate about it, math's the thing they love. They break out the math games instead of the other games when they're at home just playing. They're the students that are pushing towards the honors. And again, that's because the honors class has challenge and rigor in it to where they need to have that passion, so when they hit the struggle, they dig through it and they get excited about it. They throw away the paper and they run back to it and try again, and they throw away the paper again and run back to it and try it again. But those are the students that are looking for the honor. Both courses are incredibly rigorous. Both courses develop strong logic and reasoning skills with the students. They both do a phenomenal job. Again, it's just the honors course is significantly harder and really meets the challenge level that some of our students need. Coming out of this, the students would be prepared to go to calculus or AP calculus. Again, there's no tracking. I've had students that have gone through regular up to pre-calculus and then jumped and taken AP calculus with me and done great. I've had students that have done the opposite. They've gone honors all the way through junior year, and then senior year they had other interests, so they opted to go for regular calculus. Again, it's a great progression either way. A couple of the key questions. Who do I contact if I have a question about my son or daughter's recommendation? The 8th grade teacher would be the primary person. They know your son or daughter the best, and they're the ones that made that initial call, so they'd be able to answer some of the questions about why. If I have a question about curriculum, give me a call or email me. I'm more than happy to talk about it. As a matter of fact, I'd love to talk about it, so you might be on the phone for a while, sorry. But definitely don't hesitate. I want everybody to feel comfortable and have their questions answered. So give me a call if there's a question on curriculum. Summer school. I want you to just close your eyes for a second. You don't really have to. But envision a nice, beautiful day like tonight. Not like tonight. During the summer when it's 75, sunny, nice breeze in the air, and then imagine taking 36 weeks of material, squeezing it down into 8 weeks while it's that beautiful all the time. Then imagine how much of that geometry you're going to remember in a year. Summer school doesn't usually work for the students to accelerate. It's tempting. It looks like this great thing. Oh, in 8 weeks they can make a whole year of progress. 4 months down the road, they didn't make that year of progress that they made in 8 weeks. So really try to avoid that for acceleration. If there's a struggle, if we hit a bump in the road and we run into a failure in a course, which we hope we never run into, but if we do, summer school can be fantastic for remediation, to fill those gaps and build skills. But trying to condense 36 weeks into 8 weeks and see success out of that is really hard for students. I encourage avoiding that. If I agree with my son or daughter's placement, you don't need to do anything. That's the course that they'll be initially enrolled in. If you disagree, you'll flip over a form. On the back will be an option to change. You just write in the change, sign at the bottom, and send it in. Again, don't hesitate to call if you'd like to discuss because you're just not sure. But again, ultimately, the choice is yours on that. It's a big decision. We're going to give you our best advice we can, but ultimately it's up to you and your son and daughter. And at that point, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Gannon, who will talk about science.
Thanks, John. Well, welcome. Thank you very much for coming in tonight. I'm Kevin Gannon. I'm proud to be the Science Department Chair here at Geneva High School. Thinking about it as I was welcoming people in the first session, this is, I think, my 22nd 8th grade parent night. And I was so intimidated that first night because everybody was so old. And now you're all so young. It's just much easier for me to manage this process. But tonight what I'd like to do is discuss these 5 things with you. General information about graduation requirements and kind of how the department is put together, the course offerings. But really point 3 is the main focus, and that's the 4 different places that 9th graders can start in the science department. And then what happens after that is sequences and opportunities is point number 4. And John did a wonderful job with the placement events. They don't change because it's the same thing. So some of this stuff will move rather quickly through. General information, graduation requirements. It's 2-year science courses passed. Okay, you know, just take them, but just pass them to move out. Most universities, and John alluded to this, typical 4-year university wants 3 years of science courses. But as you go through the landscape, they're all over the map. And if you move from typical to selective, and from selective to elite, you're going to have to kind of plan with the end in mind. But 4 years of science, and maybe an honors course along the way, or an AP course along the way, depending on where they want to land. But more importantly, depending on their ability and what they can handle. Okay? Because if they can't handle it, it's not a good place for them to be. General course offerings, similar to what John mentioned. When you look at our titles of our courses, you're not going to be wondering what's going on in there. And neither are the admissions officers when they're looking and reviewing traditional in name, the classrooms are vibrant. As we transition from or into the new next generation science standards, and what really that's all about is taking the knowing side of science and moving it towards the doing side. So much more inquiry-based in science lab, where they're designing the lab instead of just following directions and trying to get a result, manipulating variables and seeing how that changes the result. They're not throwing away the knowing side. They still need to know the content, but we spend less time doing that and puts a bigger burden on the student to gain that. And then we're going to move towards application of that. So we also are offering 2 new courses next year that have never been offered, and that's the AP Physics 1 and AP Physics C. So that's exciting for us too, that we're able to renew and then also take on some new curriculum opportunities for our students. As we move through, I'll tell you the starting points, but we'll see some electives in there, and those electives, keep in mind, are not only meet the interests of the students, but also designed to meet their ability levels as well. I'm going to go through the 4 different starting points with you, and you kind of have a handout there and have a little profile of the students. And as I go through and profile the student, typical student that will be starting there, if you hear me talking about your son or daughter, you might want to circle that. And then on January 23rd, the Home Access Center is going to have the recommendations from the middle school teachers. It's a good night to blank it out of the calendar and say we're going to have a little family night tonight with just you and I, and we are going to talk about those recommendations and what we're going to do with those recommendations. So January 23rd. General science students traditionally have struggled academically, especially in reading. This is a critical ability and attribute, is if they struggle with reading. We don't want to put them into a science course that is going to demand a lot of that from them until they're able to manage that. Our science teacher at this level is Mr. Wasinski, and he just has a magical touch with these students. These students tend to need a little bit more attention, so we keep the class size a little bit smaller. Generally around 12 to 18 is the range. Typically we'll have another 8 or 2 in the classroom to help Mr. Wasinski with the needs of those students. But it's a great course because he emphasizes things that are going to make them successful as they move forward. He emphasizes study skills and work habits and organization. And then the curriculum part, the content, focuses on what they're going to be seeing next. So it's about half the course is focused on earth science, and the rest of it is focused on life science, with some physical science embedded in each. Because once they have taken this general science course, we're going to transition as sophomores into earth science, and they will have seen a good amount of that their freshman year. And then as juniors, they'll go into biology, and again, they will have seen a good deal of that content. But more importantly, Mr. Wasinski really works with those students to develop those work habits and study skills. And as they move forward in the curriculum into earth science and biology, they're ready to manage their workload. Because things are fairly challenging in those things. Our second starting point is earth science, and this is where the majority of our students start, about 65 to 70% in a given year. I don't like throwing the percents out, but I want to make sure you understand that we don't have like a quota system. But generally, that's about how many are earth science courses. Standardized test scores, they changed the map this year, so we're trying to figure out how we're going to use that as an indicator. We've got to get a little information first. We can use that data to suggest maybe where we're going to put them. But other standardized test issues may have taken along the way. Usually 50 percentile up to about 80 percentile is where these students land. Classroom functioning is developing. They want to do well. Right? They want to see themselves perform well. Sometimes they're not right on point with everything. You may go home tonight or you may get a text message during the night and say, hey, pick up some materials at Walgreens on the way home. I need to make a poster for class tomorrow. Okay, so they want to do well, but sometimes they're not completely on point with everything that's going on. But they're performing well and they're getting A's and B's in their coursework. That's our earth science kids, and if they come into earth science, one thing we want to keep in mind is if they're starting in earth science, there's a real benefit here in that it delays the onset of chemistry. one of the most common difficult decisions that students and parents have to make is that, do I start in earth science or do I start in biology? And it really comes down to a math decision. If your son or daughter is in pre-algebra now, or is in algebra, but it's recommended to take it over again, then I would probably say earth science is a great place for them to start their science. And what they will do then, is we level that up, if they start in earth science as freshmen, they'll be in algebra 1. And then as sophomores, they'll be in biology and they'll be in geometry. And they'll get that extra year of mathematics. Now, there isn't any geometry in chemistry. They're not going to use any geometry there. But they will use the geometry thinking skills. That multi-step problem solving that goes on in geometry parallels the multi-step problem solving that goes on in chemistry. And so they'll take chemistry as a junior. So when you sit down on January 23rd with your sons and daughters and you open up the recommendations and they see biology and algebra 1, have a discussion with them and say, okay, how did algebra class, pre-algebra class go? How did your algebra class go? And see if they're going to be ready to take that chemistry sooner in their curriculum pathway than biology. Okay. Right? If math has been a little bit of a struggle for them, then probably the best thing to do is put them in earth science and let them get that extra year of mathematics before they get into chemistry. A third starting point is biology. Standardized test scores are in that top quartile. They need to have an Algebra 1 concurrent math placement in order to go into biology. Classroom functioning, they're on point. They'll let you know a week ago that somebody's coming over Tuesday night to help out on a project that we're doing. And when you go to parent-teacher conferences, they have great things to say about their work ethic and the work completion and all that sort of thing. High ability students with an interest in science. They just have a native interest in it. The benefit of taking biology is that they get to chemistry sooner. And chemistry is kind of our gateway prerequisite course to a lot of our upper level electives. So the benefit to taking earth science is it delays chemistry and gets you an extra year of math so you're more successful when you take it. The benefit to taking biology is it gets you to the elective smorgasbord locally. Similar to what John mentioned, we have honors courses, but they're not tracked into or out of the honors courses. It's not uncommon at all to have a biology student take honors chem because the skill sets are different. And the honors chemistry student, that's a math-based and then science ability student. Honors biology is more verbal linguistic. So it's real common to see students walk back and forth into and out of different honors courses. Our honors biology test scores are top 10% in the standardized testing that they've taken. Their achievement in the classroom is they're getting A's, and especially on the tests. Sometimes they're not getting real high grades because it's not uncommon for these students to be absent-minded and organizationally deficient. They have an absent-minded professor kind of persona, and they have a hard time getting everything together. But they never really had to because they never had that real high-level challenge that forces those kinds of habits and behaviors. Okay? Honors biology will do that for them, more to them depending on how you look at it. So standardized test scores are real strong. They need concurrent enrollment in geometry, mathematics, or higher. Classroom functioning, again, it's bipolar. Some of them are on point and very anal about everything, and others are a little bit more absent-minded than that. Achievement in coursework is they're doing very well. Similar to what John said, it just kind of comes easy for them. They have a knack for it and a real strong interest in it, and when they find challenge, they don't avoid it. They relish it. Similar to what I mentioned before, they can move in and out of. They may be in honors English and honors biology, but in algebra math. And so when they get to their sophomore year, they'll take chemistry as opposed to honors. So they are not tracked. With regards to placement events, John has covered that. It's not any different. Same thing with what you do if you agree or disagree with that information you get on the 23rd. In closing thoughts, as I'm going to be sending you on your way, is John's one good type of challenge they don't feel challenged, they won't develop the skills and habits that will make them successful when they do, and they will at some point. And if they're both below, if they're in where they don't belong, if they're placed above their ability level, then they're going to wave the white flag. And it's a devastating thing for the teacher to see, it's a devastating thing for a student to experience, and it's heartbreaking for a parent to see that happen. So we want to make sure that we get them started in the right place. If you have questions, talk to the 8th grade science teacher about the recommendation. If you sit down on the 23rd, you're like, he said something about algebra and I can't remember, email me and I'll make sure that I get back with you very quickly so that we